Welcome to episode 52, where I promised I would give you a look at some really cheap audio interfaces. I picked this one first because, well, it looks like one of those really simple 2-channel mixers. It's got 48 volt phantom, so I've plugged it into my bass guitar and I've plugged it into the 107 microphone, the one with the smaller capsule that we used the other day for a recording. So it's a budget microphone, guitar, plugs in via USB to my iMac here, which is running Cubase, and I've got me speaking onto one channel and I've got a bass guitar on the other. It works fine. In terms of controls, well, a couple of pots. There's also a fader for the output and there's a fader for the headphone socket. 48 volts works and powers this mic fine. And I didn't have to do very much with Cubase to make it accept it. It came up as a USB 2 device. I went into Cubase, selected it as the driver, and it works. It's working quite fine. It does have a slight fault. So brand new interface with a slight fault. If I wiggle the XLR connector, all hell breaks loose. Yeah, so really nasty noise if I wiggle it. If I leave it alone, it's fine, and I'm guessing it's probably a dry joint. But it cost, including shipping, £16. That's crazy. £16 is probably about the price I pay here when I take my grandkids to McDonald's. So 16 quid for a working interface that works directly into Cubase and seems to do exactly what it's supposed to do. So I'm having trouble finding fault with it, apart from that noise. And I guess that's probably just down to bad luck. But without me wiggling the socket, it's behaving itself, and I could actually use it as it stands. It's got enough gain for this microphone, this condenser. It does actually have an extra socket on the front for a 3.5mm jack that you could use to connect one of the condensers that comes with one of those sort of cables like that. You know, got an XLR and it's got a 3.5mm jack to go into a laptop or something like that. So you could use that to get your condenser in. Just so you can see how it handles sort of the bass. Right. So that's that bottom B. Sounds okay. So all in all, for a random out of the box test on this one, I don't think it's a proper brand. I mean, Teyun, T-E-Y-U-N, I've never heard of them, don't know what they are. I think it's just a sort of a randomly made up brand. But they make a few interfaces and bits and pieces like this. So all in all, what we got? Well, we've got an interface that's usable. It certainly works on a bass guitar. Doesn't seem to make any noises that it shouldn't do, apart from when I prod that connector that's obviously got a bit of a dry joint on it. But for a first one, I'm pretty impressed with this. And really, for 16 quid, you can't beat this, really, can you? I mean, 16 quid buys nothing nowadays. And this has come halfway around the world. I reckon shipping must have been at least half of that. So factory price, it's got to be like 8 quid. just ridiculous. Anyway, that's the first one. We'll have a look and see what we can do with the next ones. Moving on to interface number 2. Now this one is a Teyun Q16. and it's more expensive. Including the shipping, this one was £22. Now, just plugging this up, everything works normally. It's quite a nice looking interface. Couple of gain controls, but it has sort of a couple of weirdnesses and also a gadget that I have no idea why anybody would want it. If I press this button here, we have effects. Now, it's not a reverb. If I go, hello, hello. It's bizarre, isn't it? So it's more like a delay. So it's variable in level. Now, the only thing I have noticed is if I take it right down to the minimum, it is actually still applied. So there is actually still a little bit of delay there, and I can't get it down any lower. The only way to remove it is turn that off. So it does have an effect. But now here comes the dodgy bit. You're listening to me now on both channels. I do not have the facility to only go to one. Both of the inputs go to both. That was a bit too potent, wasn't it? So if I talk, I'm on top. That's not good. So for a recording interface, despite being a little bit more expensive, it's got the dubious advantage of having those effects, but it's got a serious lack of any ability to actually use the two channels sensibly when they're connected to a DAW. It's just everything goes to stereo, which I don't quite understand. But you can't have everything. Audio wise, it's okay. It's in quite a nice little case. The case is quite sturdy. It's plastic, of course, but it's quite sturdy, and it looks quite nice. The 48-volt phantom power works like the other one. It came up as a USB 2 device, and it took me a couple of seconds just to root Cubase to make it work. So it works. £22. But for me, that lack of the ability to actually separate the two channels and send one way and one the other is a serious omission. So I think for this one, it probably counts it out for most people, I guess. Right, we've got one other interface to look at, and that's a slightly bizarre thing. And I've already decided it's probably got no use whatsoever when it comes to actually recording audio for our typical purposes. But I guess if you like gadgets and things, it could possibly be useful. Anyway, that's coming up now. So this is the last one in a little trio of audio interfaces. And this one is the Live Webcast Sound Mixer X50, no brand. It's a bit different from the others. It doesn't have XLR inputs. It certainly doesn't have phantom power, although it does have 3.5mm inputs that I've connected to this little cheap microphone that we were using. So it obviously supplies the 5 volts or so that this thing will use. And it's full of gadgets. It suffers a bit like that second one in that the microphone inputs, of which there are two, the microphone inputs go to both channels. It does have one that's labelled accompany, and that appears to be a 3.5mm line level stereo input, so you could plug it into something and play music if you wanted to, like that. It's sensitive enough that I can plug the bass into it, but not much point really, because it's bungs it in exactly the same place as the others. It's obviously designed for webcasters. So we've got bass and treble controls. We've got a Recordio app. It's got bass and treble controls. We've got an audio output level control, and we have loads of buttons. And some of the buttons are extremely odd. I figure I may as well just let you listen to them and make your own mind up as to what they do. How about this sort of thing? That was a cheer. This one says din. Now, I don't quite get this one, but here we go. That's a din. Sounds like a bird to me. "9277" is the label on that button. That's supposed to be a kiss. No point with that one, is there?
Awesome!
Awesome? That's supposed to be a giggle. This one is applause. No guesses for this one? Yep. Ooh. That was a yell. Laughs, and the last button on here, PUBG. Now, it's got a few other bits and pieces. There's one that's labelled here electronic sound, and that just seems to be some sort of weird doubly track type thing. I'm having a bit of trouble with these other two buttons.
This one is supposed to be a female voice.
And that one is supposed to be a male voice. And this last one
is a baby. So this one's a baby sound. Oh, isn't that lovely? Slash.
Oh, I discovered you have to push a button over here marked host to make the effects turn off. Now, why that's labelled Mary, I don't know. Is that from a game? Who knows?
I love it! You guys are so great!
Yeah, okay. Well, you get the idea. We've also got a fader that when it's turned up full, it's supposed to be reverb. That's reverb on full. And that's reverb off again. So I'm guessing you can sort of see the sort of thing this is designed for. And I guess it does it okay. It's no use for a musical recording sort of device at all, is it really? I mean, it interfaces fine with the computer. It's another USB Audio 2 device. That works okay. But it's just a bit tacky around the edges, really. It does seem to work. I mean, I can't argue with that. I just can't imagine me ever finding a use for any of these gizmos. Anyway, that's given us a talk, hasn't it? So we've got 3 audio interfaces. The first one I think has got promise, although it did have a crackle. I'm assuming that's probably just a one-off. Second one, lacking in routing, so that sort of ruins it for most people. And this one's a bit of a toy. But there we go. That's our audio interfaces. I'll see you on the next video, because what we're going to do is go back to some serious stuff. And I'm thinking perhaps another vintage microphone, something like Sennheiser 421, that sort of thing. We'll have a look at those. That's the clue, guys. So I'll see you on the next video. Do the subscribe thing, ring the bell if you want, and you'll get the notifications. And other than that, I'll see you on the next one. Take care.